I suspect that's ending now. But that's where I stand on immigration. I think I wanted to just say that real quick, Ted, and point out that, but because of my libertarian leanings, would I have gone and protested with us? You and I had this discussion on the phone earlier today. I love that. I love the result. I'd say, I think if that was an issue near where I lived right now, I would go and protest with them. But you're like, why would you do that? You can get hurt.
Yeah, I mean, literally, a New York Post photographer got shot in the face in Los Angeles by one of those "quote unquote" non-lethal rounds, which, by the way, kill people sometimes.
Yeah, they're horrid. The bean bags or the rubber bullets, either one.
These were the rubber bullets.
If they hit you in the chest, they also shot
a lady for LA Channel 9 while she was doing a live stand-up. Yeah. So
they did it on purpose because they're dicks.
They're dicks. Yeah. And I guess here's the thing, right? I mean, I think it's possible to say that people should not come to the United States illegally, but I also say, let's be serious here. The border was open pretty much for at least the last 4 years, but the truth is it's been open. It's been porous. Neither party has cared about this issue for decades.
Not in a significant or serious way. You're right.
Right. And so the point is, it's kind of like the cliche was that Republicans wanted the border open because they liked the cheap labor, and Democrats wanted the border open because they liked the future Democratic votes. Turns out Democrats were not getting what they thought they were getting out of that deal.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, wah, wah. But the point is that it's very. It's like, this. So I look at this from the standpoint of the lawbreaker. I mean, are you really a lawbreaker if it's been made clear to you? Let me give you an equivalent. Okay, here in New York State, you won't get a speeding ticket if you drive 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. You just won't. You can breeze right past a state trooper. You can do this your entire life. You'll never get a speeding ticket. Basically, if the speed limit's 55, you drive 65 or under, you'll never get a speeding ticket. Well, let's just say a new governor comes in and says, I'm changing all that. Governor Rall's like, speed limit is the speed limit. That's how it is in France. Speed limit is the speed limit. You have a speed limit, you go 1 kilometer an hour over the speed limit, you'll get a ticket. So like we change all that. Well, I mean, basically for a while, it's going to take a while for New Yorkers to kind of adjust to that and figure out like, okay, well, so it would make sense if you're like a government for the people, by the people, of the people, to have an adjustment period where you would say, okay, for the first year that we've installed Governor Rall's new policy, we'll give people warning tickets just so they're aware. We're going to post lots of signs all over the place. The fines are going to be minimal, but they're going to scale up over time. But that's not what we're doing here. We're basically saying we let any Tom, Dick, and Harry who wanted to come in here, no muss, no fuss. Now suddenly you're a fucking horrible person and a criminal and an asshole. It's like, no, not really. I mean, you came in when it was okay. If we're going to change the rules and say, okay, that's illegal, then we got to say, listen, you got to if you've been here a while, maybe you can apply for a green card and maybe we'll give you one. If you haven't been here for a while, you have like 30 days or 90 days to get the fuck out of here. When it's time, we'll give you 10 grand to, hit the road and get started back in your home country. Obviously, we'll be civilized. We'll let you go with your family and keep your family intact. That's if you really were civilized. But instead, this is the fascist component, sweeping in and treating and terrorizing people and dragging them off in the middle of the night. It's fucking brutal. And at a certain point, whatever law they quote unquote broke goes out the fucking window when you start ripping people away from their spouses and their children, when you're terrorizing people on the street who have done really no meaningful wrong. They've violated an administrative rule that was unenforced. The most laws are unenforced in the United States, right? So so that's the thing. It's like, well, everybody obeys every law. No, they don't. They do not. Most people, if they, if they're a kid and they cut their neighbor's lawn for $40, They don't pay the IRS. I mean, the point is there's a lot of laws that we don't follow. And so, I mean, putting ourselves in the shoes of these people who are basically, in terms of their immigration status, exactly the same as the Germans, the Irish, and the Italians who came through to Ellis Island, who had no visas, no legal status.
Right.
We're not invited. They just showed up and we let them in because we needed the labor. This is exactly what Biden did. They showed up, we let them in because we needed the labor. And now we're changing our minds. That's on us. We're assholes.
Oh, no question. No question. I mean, and the fact that the legislature, I mean, since Reagan, I mean, you know what, Ted, my first editorial cartoon, I know I've mentioned this before on this podcast, but one of my very first editorial cartoons was about Jimmy Carter and illegal immigration. I mean, it was like, that's how long this has been going on. And it's
before that.
And long, but yeah, exactly. Long before that. So where are we now? Well, you know, this is going to devolve. Someone's going to get hurt. There is going to be a fatality. Trump is going to crow about it because we talked about Kent State earlier. And when Kent State happened, you mentioned the soul of Richard Nixon and his administration, the soul of America. We were shocked. That was not a yay moment. That was like, it wasn't those bastards had it coming moment. It was a moment of clarity and of, oh my God, what have we become? And maybe now we need to ratchet things back and we need to start listening to the protesters and what they're protesting for and against. And that's exactly what happened. You know, we had the end of the Vietnam War for the America part at least a few years after that. Obviously the fall of Saigon in 1975. But where are we with these protests? I suspect because here's the thing, Ted, in my mind, correct me if I'm wrong, this isn't an if, this is a when someone gets shot.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, you just have to look at it also from the point of view of the soldiers, right? I mean, so the soldiers are not trained for this. They're trained for combat situations. They're not trained for civil unrest. And when they're brought into this situation, they're told by their commanders, there's a bunch of illegal gang members. Some of them are armed. Many of them are throwing rocks and other dangerous projectiles at law enforcement. The section of LA is out of control. We need your help to go in there and crack some heads and calm shit down. That's in your mind. You're not trained for how to slowly escalate or de-escalate.
De-escalate, yeah.
And you're just trained to protect yourself and your comrades, and you're armed to the teeth, right? With weapons of war. You go in there, and not to mention, just think about like you're bored, it's hot, it's humid, it's uncomfortable, it's 80 degrees outside, 85 in the sun, the 90 from the reflection from the sun on the concrete,
and you're wearing
heavy shit, so you're sweating like a monster. It's 105, 110. You probably don't have all the water you'd like. You're uncomfortable, you're miserable, you're bored, and then these like little punks are yelling insults at you, right? Like calling you fascist, throwing shit at you, bottles. I mean, 90% of you will nevertheless be able to keep your cool. But one of your comrades is going to pull that trigger and shoot someone. It's just inevitable. It's what's going to happen.
When the president says the order is when they spit, we hit. That's a quote.
Well, I guess it's not the poetry of Johnny Cochran. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
But if they spit, we hit. I mean, that's the line. So to your point, Ted, yeah. So I believe, and I know you do too, this is going to end in violence. Now, what will America's reaction be to you're going to have some poor schmuck face down in the streets of LA bleeding out.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to have, because we have the internet, are you going to have assholes who are going to be gloating, saying they had it coming, they shouldn't have been, exercising their First Amendment rights?
100%.
Yeah. But what percentage of Americans are going to do that? What percentage of Americans will be aghast and move to some form of action?
That's a good question. And I think it's like, what is it that what rises to the level of, causing people to turn angry? I mean, I wasn't there when, I was 2 when, or less than that, when the lunch counter protests at Woolworths happened in the South down there near you. And, there's something about these well-dressed young men, they were men, so all they wanted to do was order a hamburger. And then like these sheriffs came in with their dogs and their fire hoses and brutalized them. And white America up north in particular was shocked. It just reached into their living rooms and they just couldn't believe it. And it was the beginning of the end of Jim Crow, right? I think that's can happen. There's going to be diehards who are going to be like, always going to be like, fuck these protesters. Look at them with their Mexican flags. They're getting, they should kill them all. There's always going to be people like that. And then there's going to be other people who are on the other side of the bell curve who are going to be like, open borders and people can do whatever they want, blah, blah, blah. But most people in the big middle, that big bulge, there's going to be this mix. Like, I don't think people should immigrate illegally, but this goes too far. We shouldn't be shooting people in the street. I think that's really ultimately where common sense middle America always comes down, but it just takes a while.
Yeah, it does. So yeah, I agree. And obviously on the coasts, there would be great gnashing of teeth and consternation and in an inert reaction. They're going to. There was another issue, and I kind of want, it's a peripheral issue. It's really peripheral to this, but I do think it's hilarious. And that is the head Latinas for Trump co-founder rips Trump immigration policies as unacceptable and inhumane. Who could have guessed, Ted? Well, apparently Florida State Senator Alenia Garcia, I believe I'm saying that correctly, although it may not be, was one of the founders of Latinas for Trump, and she is aghast, Ted, shocked and aghast that this could possibly have happened, that this administration, an administration headed by a man who said that immigrants were rapists and murderers, some of whom might be good, that's a quote, somehow would do something like what he's doing in LA. I mean, what? I have to admit, I sent this to Ted and said, I'm screaming at my computer as I'm having breakfast and flipping it off saying, fuck you to hell. What did you think was going to happen, you idiot? I just wanted to bring that up because I also know that the African-American community is aghast that somehow he's not as friendly to them as he said he would be. Gee, who knew?
I mean, Scott, what can I say? I mean, duh.
Yeah, that's all you can say is it's just a big honking steaming pile of duh. Of course he was going to do the shit like this. You knew he was going to do shit
like this. He promised he was going to do shit like this, and he did shit like this already. It wasn't like we had no idea, I mean, it's not like it's the first time ever. Scott, it's not really related here, but I do want to ask you a little bit about one of our commenters, Juan Don, says they forget he said he would do this. Fair. I think that's right. It's that simple. Let's talk a little bit. I'm springing this on you.
Okay.
The United Kingdom has just decided to impose sanctions on 2 top Israeli cabinet ministers, including Ben Gvir. It's symbolic. I doubt that either of them has bank accounts in the UK or plans to visit the UK. They won't be allowed to visit the UK. They'll be missing out on all that fine cuisine. But
boiled meat.
But and the warm beer. But I mean, in all seriousness, it is symbolic. But isn't this it's the first crack, right, in the Western alliance with Israel?
Well, it's not the first crack, Ted. You had the International Court, I'm not sure what their mechanizations are called. You probably have a better grasp of that than I do, but something alike. They have charged Netanyahu and the Netanyahu government with genocide. What they're doing now, I've been a supporter and am a supporter of Israel, but what they're doing now.
Would you still say you are? I mean,
yes.
And what I mean is, you could say, okay, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you can say, well, I support the state of Israel, but I don't support what the state of Israel is doing in this particular case. Fair. But is it possible to even go tease those things out, given just how extreme Israel's actions have been, and then also, just given the fact that this isn't like the war in Gaza isn't some little side project. The entire nation of Israel is engaged in a full-throated, it's on a war footing. It's like the main thing that they're up to. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, we're doing this war, but we're also socializing, the energy sector. It's like, this is what they're doing.
I understand what you're
they're
saying.
all about. Yeah.
Right. And that's why they've taken it to a point now that I don't think any reasonable person can support. Initially, I supported their reaction to the attacks of October 7th. Am I saying that correct?
Yep.
Okay, October 7th, which was an egregious, and that was not just like one time out of the blue. Holy shit, who knew they were doing this? They were lobbing missiles from Gaza. Hamas continues to run the Gaza and be the
not really
puppet of Iran. What do you mean, not really?
Well, no, Hamas is like literally, there is no governance now. Hamas was a government. It ran schools. It ran driver's license. It issued driver's licenses. It had all of the, it had a retirement plan. It had all of the features of a functional government before the war. Those functions have ceased to exist.
Well, they had to have. Yeah,
the entire system has collapsed. It's not like there's so much as a traffic cop out there anymore. And there were traffic cops. So like the point is, Hamas, ever since the war began, the system has completely collapsed. The only governance at this point, and according to international law, is completely the responsibility of the Israeli government as the occupying authority.
And the Hamas government, the Israeli government not allowing humanitarian aid into Gaza now runs.
Well, not now, for the better part of 70 days.
Right? I would say now more than before, which is my campaign
more than
slogan.
Ever. Yeah.
Scott Stantis, now more than before. But I would say because the humanitarian issue is getting worse and worse and worse, and they need to get food, potable water, medical supplies into the Gaza.
To.
Well, that's what
the Israelis set up this thing. They kicked out all They kicked out all the real NGOs like medicine, like Doctors Without Borders, and then they created this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that turned out to be a fiasco and had been predicted to be a fiasco. They ended up shooting the people who came looking for food and killed at least 50 of them on at least two separate occasions. There was no delivery of food that didn't lead to a massacre, and they shut the whole thing down. So now they're back to zero.
Yeah. So how do you respond when, again, it seems a small response to a big issue, but when you have people sympathetic to Hamas, sympathetic to Palestinians killing, two kids who were working at the Israeli embassy, for instance, you had, how do
What's your point?
What's that?
But that's a reaction to Israel's actions in Gaza.
Well, and Israel was reacting to Gaza, and a Gaza that was aggressive, lobbing missiles, and was aggressive for years and was showing no signs of changing. And then the attacks of October 7th, said.
But of course, Israel had been, also had been brutally oppressing the people of Gaza and the West Bank that whole time too.
Well, I'm not sure that that's entirely true. How so?
By cutting, for example, by cutting off sufficient food and other aid from entering the Gaza Strip even before October 7th. The settlements in the West Bank, encouraging violent attacks by brutal right-wing settlers against innocent civilians.
Well, and I would say the settlements is. Is another example, and so you have the far right wing religious parties being part of the
my point
Netanyahu
is that,
government.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I mean, I want to just sort of, but like, I mean, would you still say you're a supporter of Israel?
Yes.
So how does that work?
Well, you described it. I hate what they're doing now. I hate the current government, but I think that will change as things do, and we'll get back to some rationality and some kind of humanity, I would hope. Yeah. I mean, I hate the ICE raids here in the United States, and I hate the raids in Gaza. I think they have gone too far. The polls in Israel show that they have gone too far. Next election, Netanyahu's going to be gone. Don't forget, he's fighting for what Donald Trump was.
Although, in large part, the reason he's unpopular in Israel has nothing to do with the rights of the Palestinians, right? It has to do with his failure to prioritize the return of the hostages, the fact that the war is dragging on for so long, his own personal political corruption domestically.
Yeah. Well, I was just about to say, he's fighting for what Donald Trump was fighting for when Trump ran for re-election. He wanted to stay out of jail.
Self-preservation.
Yeah. And that's what this is for Netanyahu. And so I've never been a fan of the Netanyahu government. I've certainly never been a fan of the coalition he put together to sustain it. And now there's a bill. Is it a bill or is it a referendum that's coming before the Israeli people that said that, because as you know, Ted, the ultra-Orthodox don't have to be subject to the draft in Israel.
Right.
And
that's a split. That's a schism in Israeli society.
It's a huge schism. It should be. I'd be pissed off as hell, and I am. And I'm not even Israeli.
I mean, the thing is, is it possible to say, like, I guess I would say, I'm a supporter of America, but not the American government. Would you go so far as to say you're not a supporter of the Israeli government?
I would say that at the current government, absolutely. They have now shown themselves to be extreme in every bad definition of that word. And
what would you like to see happen in Gaza and the West Bank?
I'd like to, well, I've mentioned this before. I'd like to see a Marshall Plan, an international Marshall Plan, bring in the Saudis, bring in the Emiratis, bring in Kuwait, bring in other Middle Eastern players
for reconstruction,
and make it so, and construct it in a way that is beneficial.
But I think I think you're putting the cart ahead of the horse. You can't have reconstruction unless you have a government. So who's the government?
Well, that you and I'm laughing because you and I both know what the answer is going to be in the short term. The Israelis are going to install some Vichy government that the Palestinians,
if they can find one. I mean, honestly, talk about like honestly, it's Ted, like talk about like a very short lifespan. Good news. Have we got we got the job for you? You get to be the Vichy head of state for occupied Palestine.
Do you remember when they?
You're going. I don't know. Is your life measured in minutes or seconds? I'm not sure.
I think you could do it in a way. What was his name? Karzai in Afghanistan. They dug him up, supported him.
Didn't go well though.
He didn't die. He didn't get.
No, that's true. That's true.
He got to buy all the fabulous capes and head where he could possibly and manicure his beard.
And his family like made billions. But
but
not really him. I mean, it's a tribute to his canniness that he still lives in Kabul under Taliban rule, and he's fine.
Is he still in Kabul?
He's still in Kabul. Yeah, he's an eminence grise of the Afghan elite, and the Taliban very cannily let him stay and told him he'd be fine, and he's fine.
And God, I don't know if I trust that, but okay, I did not know that he was still there. That is
still there. And it's astounding. Yeah, it is. People don't really know.
So the government, there will be a Vichy. They're impose some kind of Vichy-esque government on the Gazans, and that's no, you're right. He didn't die. I didn't think I knew he was alive. I didn't know where.
So you bring up a good point. All right. So the Israeli, you would like to see the Israelis establish a Vichy, or would you rather have a democratic election among Palestinians? Also, you have to address the issue of the West Bank, because the Israelis have literally taken over 50% of the land in the West Bank, and they've chopped everything up. they've taken so much. They were nibbling at the edges for years.
Yeah,
and,
they were.
And then suddenly they decided to go for the whole schmear. There's a Far Side cartoon where it's like it's SeaWorld, and there's like a lady in a bikini holding like a fish over the orca tank, and the two orcas are underneath, and one orca goes, fuck the herring, I'm going for the whole schmear.
I think that's probably, they're going to, you're right. The West Bank is an issue that no one's paying any attention to. And that's been particularly egregious in terms of the settlements and the Israelis moving in and forcing out what was agreed to territory of Palestine. I think they need to, I would hope, here's my hope, Ted, which will never come true. Okay. I'm not so idiotic and so naive that I can think that this is plausible in the real world politic. But what I would love to see is Gaza, a chunk of a small part of southern Israel that opens to the Sinai, and Egypt cedes some of that territory as the new Palestinian country of Palestine.
Well, why should they give that up? I mean,
well, because it helps.
By the way, people live there.
Well, I know. Well, not many, and I think this helps them in cooperation with Israel, who's done.
Why doesn't Israel give up? I mean, honestly, Israel.
I'm just saying, Israel
should. Land.
They don't. But
they do actually. It's a small country, but it's not also a very densely populated country. The population,
like I said, the southern part of the country that butts up to the Sinai, and start to develop that. Israel has done amazing things.
Well, they could maybe connect. To your point, maybe they could connect Gaza to the West Bank. They should be connected. I mean, otherwise, if you don't, when you don't have a contiguous state, you end up with the same situation that when India,
Palestine and Bangladesh,
yeah, exactly. Bangladesh, which was East Pakistan and part of Pakistan, but separated by hundreds of miles of India, that was a shit show until Bangladeshi independence in the early 70s.
Yeah, but we make Alaska work.
We do make Alaska work, because even though we have to deal with our Canadian enemies to get through to supply.
Those bastards up there, they're too quiet, Ted. I've told you this before. We need to invade Canada because...
who I blame in all this is Michael D'Adder. He's the worst. He's the cartoonist in... At the Toronto
you blame
Star.
Him for all of the
this is all his fucking fault. So
I can see that. But so Western support for Israel fading, which was your original question. Yeah, it absolutely is. I don't know.
I mean, don't forget, this blink and you miss it, Scott. Did you know that Pope Francis? I mean, before he died, the Vatican recognized Palestine as an independent state diplomatically. So there is the Holy See opened an embassy, I think, in Ramallah, and also Ireland has now recognized Palestine, and Francois Mitterrand has made a lot of signs that France is imminent, and I think
the former socialist president of France.
Macron. I made the same mistake Biden made. If France goes, the dam will crack. I mean, France is diplomatically extremely influential.
Well, the fact that the UK has already done that, there is great anger towards Israel, and I mean, they've lost so much goodwill here in the West, which they enjoyed for decades and should have. They and the Netanyahu government has obliterated that. Canadians are fucking terrorism. Yeah, exactly. They're too quiet up there, man. They're too damn quiet.
Not quiet enough.
Well, they're planning something
with their burning trees.
Well, you were up there recently. You drove around the maritime provinces.
That's true.
That's where the attack's going to come from.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always think you can never trust anyone from Prince Edward Island. Those Anne of Green Gable bastards are coming for us. Also there's the frogs are up there. People don't know that. You know about Saint Pierre?
You're talking Quebecois or?
Oh no! I mean the actual frogs. So Saint Pierre and Miquelon are two little islands that are right off the coast of, I believe, off the coast of Labrador. Or Nova Scotia, one of those two. And anyway, they're part of France. They're like French. They're French province or protectorates or something.
Oh, wow.
They're French. And they never let go. Like somehow the Brits never clawed those away from them. They're like basically fishing islands. Their one role in international diplomacy and geopolitics was during World War II, when de Gaulle came to liberate them from the Vichy yoke, and basically they were like, "Hey, come on in."
I can't imagine there's a big fight there.
There was no fight.
Yeah, and Canada was also the. I didn't know this until recently that the King of England, many of his aides were, and the military people were saying, you need to leave during the Blitz. You need to get out of here. You need to go to, we need to go to Canada and get out of harm's way.
But
and
he didn't,
to his credit, he stayed in the castle there. I guess if you're going to stay, you may as well stay in style. But he was there, he was there throughout the war, and I think that's admirable. But I still reluctantly, or at least roll my eyes at my support of Israel, but I still will find.
What would it take to make you say, all right, I'm done. I'm on Team Palestine?
I think when there's a legitimate and workable peace that's put forward and they say, fuck you, and they just keep doing what they're doing.
Well, yeah. All right. Well, I would argue we've already been there, but that's a different show for another time.
Okay.
Anything else you want to hit before we call it a day?
No, just Latinas for Trump. Fuck you. It was, America. It was great while it lasted. I'm serious. It's over. Tell me I'm wrong, Ted. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, it depends on what your idea of America is. I mean, if your idea of America is that it's a violent, arrogant empire that abuses and steals and kills whenever it can just for fun, I'd be like, USA is going strong. If you want to say that it was a set of ideals informed by, the Age of Enlightenment and all that, no, that stuff is on the way out. Maybe it could come back, but I don't think we're going to see it in our lifetime, Scott.
Well, okay. Before we go, I did want to share this with you, Ted, because I think you'll find it hilarious. We were recording the podcast the other week, and I was watching my grandson, who is 1.5 years old. And he said, I have to go to work, Daddy. I mean, Grandpappy's work, and I'm going to go. Blah. He kind of looked at me quizzically. I go, blah, 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 blah. He now does that constantly. He goes, blah, 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 working. So, yeah, it's been great working with you, Ted. Thank you.
Likewise.
Blah, 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 blah.
All right, then. That's going to be a screenshot. It's going to turn up on right-wing media all over the place. Awesome. Yeah. All right, Scott, this is the singing sensation known as Scott Stantis. Get ready. Clear your throat, clear your nose, clear your ears, and here goes.
Look at me. I'm as frightened as a kitten in a tree. I get misty over you. Bye, Ted.
Bye.